Yeah, good morning and good evening. Welcome to this week's Circle of Harmony. I'm Taru, and today we are continuing our exploration of what it means to stand by my own side, and we can also call it, self-love. So we'll be exploring it further. But before we begin, if we can just give ourselves few moments to just gather ourselves, following the breath in and out. Opening myself to new ideas, new possibilities, invoking grace, and praying that may I be able to see through the veil that hides so much, so that I can live lighter, simpler, and easier, and evolve. Yeah, so the topic again today is standing by my side. So just sharing the poster again for us. So, the what I had been requested was to take the topic of self-love. And yet, knowing fully well that we don't really understand self, I don't fully understand self, and I don't understand love. I thought taking the topic instead to be standing by my side, I don't know, felt more of my domain, something that I am capable of rather than, big things and big terms that I try to talk about. And it's tough. It's easier to take simpler words. So that was my thing. Because somehow self, I just considered my body, my beliefs, my emotions as myself. And for me, mostly, love is just, a transaction. More like, I don't know, how how it's the trade, the transaction, like in business, because that's what we know work. But that's not really love. And it's hard to understand that, but we will try in our capacity to discuss that. Yes. So, again, just going through this, that once I'm in love with myself, I find my center, my own strength. I find a solid ground to stand on as my own advocate, my own true friend. Thank you for allowing me to give this introduction yet again. And I had requested you that if we could think about, my definition of what love is, or just reflect on this topic more based on our past sharings, our past discussions and reflections. If there's anybody who did reflect and has some sharing, please, I would request you to unmute. And I know Sham also has been doing a lot of reading. So before I start, if you could please share Jagan and Sham and Snehi, that would be wonderful so that we can begin where we want to go.
Yeah, well, Taru, am I audible? Okay. So, Taru, actually, what I was saying was that my thoughts are very much akin to my tears. Okay. Like, for example, my tears, they get conceived in my heart and they take birth in the womb of my eyes and they live on my cheeks and then they die down on my lips mostly. Okay. So, I'm sorry, I'm sounding a bit romantic, but our thoughts are very much like our tears. Okay. So, if we have good thoughts, naturally we'll become a good person. Like how in Rhonda Bynes in Secret, she says that what we give is what we receive. Okay, so this give and receive thing, we always we ought to be mindful of that. Okay, so suppose although I'm sitting very far away from you, maybe miles away from you, but still if sitting here, if I give thoughts of animosity to you, then certainly will feel the punch. Although you may not feel it directly, but indirectly you will feel the punch or maybe the bad vibes of it. So if anyone rubs me the wrong way or if anyone reprimands me, then I have two options. First of all, I can separate the emotion from the incident, walk back a bit, and then try to be in the shoes of the other person. Okay. Again, being in the shoes of the other person may not be always easy. Like how in English, there's a new term called BTS, behind the scenes. For this, looking from behind the scenes, it cannot be easy most of the times. So probably I can think that maybe he did something which I deem to be inappropriate, which may not be inappropriate in that other person's eyes. And so I can pray to Almighty that he or she may he or she get more clarity and see things in the bigger picture. So that is one part of the story. So by that I'm sending good vibes to both myself and to that other person. So at the same point of time, I'm acting as an altruistic guy also and as a selfish guy also. Because at the end of the day, my thoughts will stay with me. So even if I give a bad thought now, it will, what do you call, it will reoccur to me multiple times. So giving good thought to even the so-called enemies and detractors and baiters is the best bet, what I think. Again,
Yeah,
it may not
Sham,
come.
yeah. Sham, if you could also, one second, I'm so sorry interrupting you, but if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can reflect on what is, what it means to me when I hear this thing called standing by my side, right? Or say self-love in more conventional terms. What you are talking about is again other people, right? Transactional, right? Like there's other, how do I
Mhm.
deal with that? But if you could just pause and just also share what it's about my relationship with myself. You're talking about outside, right? And I'm talking about here. So little bit thought on that as well.
Yeah, Taru, about my relationship with myself, I would say that I won't give in to my relationship with myself depends not only on the food that I eat, but it depends on a vast array of factors like the news that I consume, the people around me, okay, and then a host of other things. And in the midst of all this, if I maintain my inner peace, inner calmness, and inner, what do you call, inner poise, then that is a sort of self love for me. Again, going further deep down, I cannot detach myself entirely from the society and entirely for the people from the people around me. And as mother also said that there are a lot of toxic people in and around us. So the bottom line and broad line of that is I can always pray for them, I can always bless them. Again, this is one stage of my evolution where the I comes into being. Although I'm not competent enough to bless them, but that I comes into being. But then that is one stage of growing up and one stage of evolution. Maybe in the second stage, I can say that Almighty's grace have dawned upon me, and so I am able to bless them.
Yeah, it sounds really complicated the way you are talking. And just saying again, if we can just pause, all of us, maybe if we can close our eyes, we can pause. Maybe we can just let go of all the definitions that I have read, known, think to be true in this moment. In absolute simple terms, if I were to ask myself, or if somebody was asking me, or if a child was asking me, what is self-love? In children, if you have to tell this to a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, what would you say? So anybody who is okay sharing, very simply, no big terms. I'm saying this to a 4-year-old. If I could tell this to, share that here.
Namaskar. Uh, in my opinion, in one sentence, it is taking care of self-love is taking care of myself like my own mother would, but not to that extent, but at least to some level. And caring about my feelings and caring about what all the reactions that go inside my mind, and nurturing it, strengthening it.
When you said not to that extent, can you just shed light on that as well? That was interesting.
Um, in my case, I have never been able to reach the point where I can, you know, like I think I can never compare the love of my mother or towards me versus my own love towards me. I think I can never reach that level of selflessness. Even if I'm selfish, it's just her yeah, her love is just a different level.
We talk about love, like it's individual thing, right? Like, okay, there's a way I love, there's a way that somebody else love, there's a way that Jagan love, there's a way that, how different of us love, and yet they say that love is the essence that makes the world go round, and it's all about that oneness. Like there's one love. So I think just realizing this also, that if one can do it, we all can touch that space. And this Thursday we were in the heroic study group. We were talking about Jet Sunmala has written that book, Jet Sunmala Tenzin Palmo, and she was talking about just selfless love. She was talking about her mother, and in that she had mentioned that, and we might have taken this before because I found it extremely beautiful when I read her book, that she like it was her brother and her mother. Their father had died like when I think Jetsunmala was not even one. So they were living in Britain, not very well, very kind of hand to mouth and stuff. And her brother had joined some armed forces in Malaysia. So she and her mother were living together. She was maybe 18, and she had wanted to go to India, kind of like she had wanted to do that. And she had been writing to so many people. We are talking about, I don't know, 60, 70 years back when, the writing and stuff wasn't very easy. So finally, she got a letter from a nunnery. She had written that you're welcome, come, we have work for you. And she said she took that letter and she started running towards where her mother worked, and she was on her way back. And when she met her mother, she was like, I'm going to India. And her mother was like, oh, that's beautiful, dear. When are you leaving? So she said, that here she was, a woman who had dedicated her whole life to her children. The son is already gone. She's living with her daughter in Britain. Again, hard life. And plus, she and her mother shared a lot of interest. Like they both had interest in Buddhism. They both went to Dharma meetings together. So there was company. There was that joy. There was this love. But not for a second did she say that, but what will happen to me? How can you leave? Or that me wasn't there. It was just, and when are you leaving, dear? So the way she says it, it's very beautiful. And just knowing that that too is a possibility. And that's not how I usually take it, right? Because somewhere there's always me in the picture, right? There's always me. That if there's love between two people, there's like, okay, this is what I am giving and this is what I am getting. This is what I am giving and this is what I am getting. And that's why, Jagan, when you were saying that I cannot touch that space of selfless giving that is possible between a mother and a child. Because I think only a mother maybe can naturally touch that space, but we too can do it, but we have to make a little bit effort towards it because, it's a combined thing. It's not just for the mothers to feel that, and yet we see that more naturally in mothers. Taking that further, her mother had actually, spoken to some friends and said, and it was a very tough time for her because Jasunmala hardly ever went back, right? She spent all her life in India, and before she, left her body, her mother said to her friends that I pray that, I am her mother in all her births because she needs some special situations and special ways in which she likes to do things, and I want to be that ground on which he can stand. So not pulling, not pushing, just being that, yes, yes, fly, fly, do what you have to. I'm okay. So this trait that we think love is or have assumed love to be, with expectations, demands, and of course giving as well. But as long as I'm getting something, just yeah, I'm sorry. It was just I wanted you guys to share, but just it reminded me of that. And Sham, what you had shared, about this give and receive from the secret book, that too has very limited thing. This give and receive, give and receive. Again, I know what you are saying. I read the book too, and we see that all around us. And yet, there are things, so many things that are beyond giving and receiving, right? Like, say, if I don't love because that person is good, he's my child, he's my this thing. There is also a stage where it's like, I love because I don't know how not to love, right? Like, for example, say, we speak about Guru Nanak, that, when he was young, how his father had asked him to protect the garden so that the field, so that the birds, they don't come and eat everything. And when his father came back, he was just lying down happily. And then when his father said, what did you do? You are not kind of acting like that scarecrow and vending off birds. He said that Ram ki chidiya, Ram ka khet, khale chidiya bhar bhar pet. So it's not that what I am getting or what I am losing. It's just I don't know how to think about me. That self-abnegation. So this giving and receiving is really good to understand and practice, and yet knowing that true giving doesn't have logic and it's not a doing maybe. It's just it happens that because I don't know how not to love, I become love. And it's not that I love you, I love him. That's the way we restrict things. It's a more open thing that I love. And, this mother thing that we were discussing, that the love between a mother and a child, this basically comes under mamta. In Upanishads, they talk about it like mamta, ki mera. I love because he is mine. She is mine. A mother is so concerned about, if my child ate, what they did, especially eating, because body is mostly concerned about the body, that mera bachcha khush rahe, that mera, mine. But what about the, I don't know, 100,000 kids that are hungry on the street? That I turn my back on. Yes, Sham, please.
Yeah, that mamta and samta thing comes here. Okay, that samta means that larger aspect of love, and mamta means a more restricted aspect of love.
And yet we always go so big on mamta, right? कि मेरी माँ या माँ की तरह कोई प्यार नहीं कर सकता, and yet knowing that that too is a limited form of love. Like right now, what we were discussing, that that's the highest I know, that's the highest I have seen. And yet, because it just is a limited vision, limited because I love because it's mine, that too has limitations, and those limitations have to be transcended. I remember, and I must have shared this before, once, Acharya Prashant, he had once said that, we value mamta so much. We look at it like, wow. And samta kind of is like a secondary thing. And if you look at it, there are so many people who name their children Mamta, their girls Mamta, but he said, I don't know a single Samta. So it's sounding kind of weird when I'm speaking Mamta Samta again and again. And yet, what, I'm not going for my full potential. I keep stopping in between. Again, diverting here and there. And yet, I think it helps when we are trying to expand our vision and our thoughts. And that's what we're trying to do here, to reflect on these things, that it's not limited. It's not limited. And everybody is capable. Like Jagan, why, again, this question, if I may ask you, if you are fine answering it, or anybody, why are we so hard on ourselves? Like you said that you cannot love yourself like your mother loves you. And why is that?
Um, ma'am, last week, um, I sort of failed in expressing, correctly communicating or speaking my mind. Um, so when I say that I can never compare to the love of my mother, I mean to say that the way she channels her love, the way she channels it, like there is always love, even in her anger, in her love, in her sadness, in her happiness, there is always love stays constant. But she somehow mastered on how to channel it on me, based on my scenario, based on my situation. And that is something that I have like I'm yet to achieve. So if I like to talk about, I like to give examples. So this is about this is in 2002. It was Diwali. I was like I was like 9 or something, I don't remember. So my this is about my father. So on Diwali, this flower pot, we burn it and it kind of throws flames around. I was holding that in my hand. I was telling my friend on the street, I was telling my friend, I'll hold it like this, and you put, you fire it up, like you light it up, and then I'll hold it like this, and it will look very cool because it will be, working on my hand. It will be firing on my hand. My dad immediately, the moment, my friend also agreed because he was my age, he didn't care much. My dad immediately pulled me inside and he scolded me, saying, "Why? What is wrong with you? That those things blew up in hand, And at that moment, I felt very sad. I thought, why is my dad yelling at me? But that was his love, channeled in a different way, that which I realize now. So, what I meant is, self love is absolutely important, but also mastering on how to channel it based on my scenario, based on my situation, is also very important. So, that is what I want. Like, if my dad just stood there and told me, like, very kindly, that Jagan, that is not a good thing to do, there is a good chance I would not listen. So he had to channel it in a different way. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Jagan, here, there's one thing that we can clearly see, that says for a mother, say for your mother, if you're talking about you, she's able to channel so much love so beautifully because you're very precious to her, right? That's probably one of the reasons, right? Like the children, our family is very precious to us. We don't take them for granted most of the time. We are so grateful grateful to have them, if we think about it at the times not. And when I look at it and when I ask myself that why are we not able to love ourselves? The reason that I come up with, and it could be very limited, is because we don't value ourselves. We take ourselves for granted, and we don't, it's like because we are standing very close to each other, to us. I'm like, okay, this is me, and I know all my faults, I know everything, and I'm the last person. In a lot of ways, I think about myself and I'm selfish. But when it comes to giving, I don't know, love and all, I'm like, okay, yeah. But it's given, right? Like how there's no need. So that preciousness, how they say that this precious human birth and this precious human body, right? Like body is needed for these experiences. I don't value them. And when I'm talking, it's even sounding weird that how do I value? Why do I value? And yet, because, there are circumstances in which you have been able to dissociate, if, with the body, you are able to take it that, okay, this has been given to me for a purpose and it will be taken away. So then again, I think that preciousness is missing. And if that is incorporated, we can, I think, be more, I don't know, loving and kindness, kind, kind towards ourselves. In my family, while growing up, there was this incident that there was this mother and father, and they had only one son. And when they were bringing him up, they were like ushering, everything they had and more to that child. And he was like, raised up with a lot of pampering and stuff. And but when the parents started growing old, the child wasn't much there for them. And then the parents, one day the dad, he questioned the child that we did so much for you. I don't know, we didn't live our own life so that you could lead a good life. And the child said that, and he wasn't a child then, he was an adult, but he said that whatever you did for yourself, right? And I'll do it for my kids, because I want to do it for them. It's not like you didn't do me any favor. So a lot of people heard it in the family and they were like, what kind of a behavior is that? What kind of an attitude is that? And yet, if we look at it, it is quite true. And I love because I don't know how not to love my child. It's not a very well thought decision. I feel I have to. And yet now when I'm asking for return, that because I loved you, I took care of you, now you take care of me. That again is again the transaction that which we just spoke, that which love is not. It's not a business transaction. And that's why we suffer, because we consider it to be just a give and take, give and receive, and a business transaction. So yeah, sorry. So I'll stop. But yes, so Jagan had shared what he felt love was, self-love, standing by his side, what it means. Asham, anything is coming to you a little bit more simpler if there's any sharing?
Yeah, well, Taru, self-love is sort of accepting myself with all my flaws and with all my positive qualities. Again, not being too much hard on myself, knowing well what my limitations are. Because as a human being, I too have some limitations. But many times what I do is that I try to go beyond the boundaries and I afflict a lot of pain on myself. So that is one thing that I need to be mindful of.
Yeah. And why
I
do you
like to
think, Sham, we are so hard on ourselves? Like, why?
because we expect far too much from ourselves. That yes, I can do it, I can do this, I can do that. Although as a human being, we have our own limitations.
And being hard helps, you think?
No, never. Actually, we try to stretch ourselves far too much, not knowing that where will it lead me to. Maybe I don't question myself that often that where am I right now and where is it leading me to. So that is one aspect on which I need to be more vigilant. I need to have an element of vigilant on myself.
Yeah.
Although it doesn't come easy, let me say that.
I'm sorry, what?
It doesn't come easy. I'm preaching it
Yeah,
very
yeah,
easily, very,
yeah,
but to practice is relatively tougher.
yeah, yeah. I like what you said that we don't touch base with ourselves, right? We don't question ourselves more regularly. So it's like, okay, we have aims, we have goals which are decided because, a lot of people, us around us are doing that. So we think it would be good. Then we force ourselves, beat ourselves that reach there, reach there, reach there. And then we are like, how do I not be tough on myself because I want to be there? And yet a lot in me doesn't care about those goals and those aims, but I never sit with myself and ask myself, what do you want? What do you feel joy in? Kind. So I think that too is a very big part that I keep
And many,
pushing myself. Yeah.
and many times we have picked up things from here and there, from tabloids, from media, from
Yeah.
family, from society, not
Mhm.
knowing that what are its underlying features and everything, anything
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I'm not even fully on board. Not all, I have not even sat down and reflected on it holistically. That do I want this? But I pick up things, I say these are the good things, and like you said, pick up from media, tabloid, other people, and then I push myself, and then I say, oh, I am not good enough, I don't do enough, and then I'm hard on myself and stuff, but I don't see what I am doing fully.
Yeah,
Yes,
and there are
thank
many
you,
examples
Shyam.
like that. That we keep looking at punchlines, like a lot can happen over a cup of coffee and all that. Punchlines like that. If the
Mm,
persons are not happening, then even if you go to that outlet, nothing much will happen.
yeah. Mm. Yes,
and
thank you.
and sometimes it feels like that whole that consumerism and all that consumer chain, it all it basically it that consumer chain goes on that thing that due to because people have lack of self-love and all that.
Yeah, because anybody can tell me, "Yo, this will give you that, right? A beer will complete you, or I don't know, the
Mhm.
latest model will give you that high, which you don't inherently have in yourself, and that's why you keep seeking for it outside. You're exactly right. The whole marketing, the whole consumerism, because you're worth it, it's kind of sitting on that inherent lack that I feel within me.
Yeah, and all
Yeah.
these flashy punchlines that if you are wearing Gucci, then God is with you, and the devil wears the Prada. All these things,
Mm, mm,
these are too catchy, and anyone would
mm,
get swayed by it.
mm.
They would start riding on that wave, and many times people don't. I mean, if I myself don't realize that where am I going.
Yeah. Just because I myself don't know who I am or where I'm going, anybody can steer me in any direction. And because I don't have a base, right? I just keep going here and there, and then being as empty or even more before, after then when I started. So that's a good thing to know so that I can be a bit more mindful of that, and it takes time. Yeah. So Snehi has shared something in the chat. Snehi says that 4-year-old. So we were, for Ritu, you have joined late. So basically, what we were discussing was that if, say, to a 4-5-year-old child, you have to explain what self-love or by what standing by my own side means. What would you tell them in very simple terms? So we were just sharing that. This is messages from Snehi. Treat every day as a new day. Learn to forgive yourself and try again tomorrow. Reminds me of this poem that you had shared. We are born each day and we are born new. I equate self-love with looking at myself from a distance, not defining or labeling myself. Eckhart Tolle talks a lot about identifying oneself as a consciousness. It's easier said than done, but I've been trying to practice this in every day. Yeah. So I equate self-love with looking at myself from a distance. So that's exactly, what Jagan and I were also talking about it, because we are too close to ourselves, because we are not able to give that distance, because I just take myself for granted. I'm like, whatever, I'm the last person on my list. And that's why, because, I am abandoned by my own self, what Sham was talking. That's why anybody can push me in any direction. The media, the whole consumerism, the marketing is based on this self, not knowing the self and telling you what you want. We don't have a TV at home. So when my son, who was like maybe 3.5, 4, I don't know, the grandparents were there or we were somewhere, he heard this ad which said that Amul Doodh Pita Hai India. So I know it's a long time back, and yet he came running to me that, Mama, do you know? I know that the whole of India drinks Amul Doodh. And I was like, okay, do you drink Amul milk? We used to get a different kind of milk. And he said, no, our milk bottle says this. So I said, then are you part of India? He said, yes. So I said, then that means it's not true, right? That Amul Doodh Pita hai India. He said, yeah. So then the conversation went on कि TV पे, media पे तो कुछ भी बोल देते हैं, right? Like we don't have to believe that. And he was like, okay. So just this thing, just questioning that how will that purse or that car or that holiday make me feel holier than thou? That's a question we must ask rather than just feeling so mesmerized that, wow, yes, I too want to feel that, I too want to feel that. And yet when I'm sitting there where I saw the ad being filled, I don't feel that because I'm again so distracted and, so much else is there and so much more is going on than that it's captured in those videos and stuff. Mhm. Mm. So Lakshna ji, I don't know if you can unmute and share. So we would just, we requested everyone to just share very shortly what self-love or standing by my own side would mean to me. Would you like to share a line or two or more?
Taru, what I was thinking about was I may not be able to say right now what self-love means to me, but one thing I definitely know that, when we talk self-love, I think very few of us really do it or really know how to do it because we've been conditioned all our lives, ki families, relationships, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. And as you grow, there doesn't seem anything wrong in that. And then there comes a time when, you've been hearing a lot, you've been led on a path by a guru, and you start wondering, okay, so if this is me, the consciousness that the guru talks about, then how much have I appreciated it? How much have I appreciated myself? And, it's happening with me today, coincidentally. It's just today. There's been a real battle inside me the whole day. I was supposed to do something, go somewhere, and I didn't want to go. And my husband is upset with me. And the whole day it's been going on in my head, that I don't want to do something. Yes, I care for him. I would like to do it for him. But what about me? What about me? And believe me, that little bit of battle is still going on. So I do realize that there hasn't been enough self-loving all my life. I haven't known what it is. Learning maybe slowly now, but it goes a long way. And I think it's really due to all our conditioning, all our lives we are taught this. But essentially, I would think self-love would mean to appreciate what you are. And if you really get joy in something that doesn't hurt anybody else, and yet it gives you joy, just go right ahead and do it. I don't know if that makes sense, but this is what I was wanting to say today.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, that's it does make sense. You did say one thing, that as long as it doesn't hurt anybody. And I
Yeah,
would,
because like I said, conditioning to hai na.
no, but I'm saying this is also something that we need to give up, because here it's only egos loving egos, right? And egos clashing with other egos. But if I'm feeling something, within, which is beyond the ego, if I'm feeling that call or I'm feeling that resistance कि मुझे नहीं जाना, then I cannot say that, but it's hurting the other. It should not hurt the other. And if the other is not that sensitive to say that, okay, उसको दिल नहीं है, उसको अच्छा नहीं लगता है, तो फिर maybe it's a lesson he must learn, right? And I am doing him a favor, like not saying this as a point of aggression, or not saying it कि अरे मैं तो बहुत बड़ी हूँ, but I also need to, we are in a relationship, tell him that no, I have to value myself too. And if that is causing somebody some pain, they better go through that pain and get used to the fact that no, that valuing yourself is also very important.
But then maybe he feels the same way. Maybe he feels the same way, that I don't ask too much of her.
Yeah.
She does what she likes. She goes where she likes. Today, if I wanted her to go somewhere, she doesn't want to go. He could also think that way.
No, and I'm saying,
Right.
and isn't that something that we need to keep stepping back from? That, like you said, I don't ask much of her, right? And she does what she wants and stuff. So, and if she doesn't even want to do this, maybe I too can understand that that's not where she wants to be, right? Like I can also learn more stepping back, right? If somebody's feeling that resistance, knowing that if she would not have felt about this way, she would have done it anyways, right? But if somebody is taking a stand, respecting that. So all I'm saying is that a lot of time we also, because if we are following our call, we are following our inner voice, and we are changing, we are doing something that we don't want to do. I'm sorry, we have started not doing things that we were doing. It causes some uproar, it causes some questioning, it causes some pain, and like that, why are we, change is always painful mostly. And yet,
Yeah,
if
that
it's
is
for
true.
good, right? If it will help the other person expand more, lose their grip more, unstick more, then it's a good pain. So I cannot just say that as long as it doesn't hurt anyone. Like say when Krishna told Arjun ke, Arjun tum lado, right? He didn't say कि बड़े धीरे से लड़ना, किसी को चोट ना लगे, right? He said कि kill anybody who wants to, because you have to follow your dharma, right? So that's the thing, seeing the bigger picture, that it's not about hurting or not hurting, it's about standing with the truth. And I don't have maybe वो कुरुक्षेत्र वाला बहुत बड़ा truth maybe, but मेरे भी तो अपने अपने वो हैं, calls हैं, likings हैं और ये सब है. तो अगर मुझे कहीं पे जाके दम घुट रहा है या अच्छा नहीं लग रहा है, I also have to honor myself. So
Yep. Agree.
yeah. Somewhere especially with spirituality, I believe that we have this image that it's very gentle. It's very loving, just a white robe and just peace and love all around. But I don't think that's a correct picture at all. Rather, there's somebody standing with a sword and some arrows, and, because when somebody is changing, When somebody is saying, no, I don't want to follow what everybody is saying, I can feel something and I will go towards that. Everybody stops you, right? They criticize you, they condemn you. I'm saying this in a more exaggerated way, and yet you have more battles to fight. Small things. Say something is happening to somebody in a medical situation. You feel this, they should do this, that's your inner calling. And yet the whole medical science says something else. It's very hard to stand by yourself, side that, nahi, nahi, mujhe aisa lag raha hai, mujhe to yahi karna hai, for yourself and for your loved ones. Taking a stand ke nahi. We just keep doubting and we keep just, bending down. So I think spirituality especially requires a lot of standing by our own side and saying कि नहीं मुझे तो नहीं करना है. I'm sorry, मुझे अच्छा नहीं लग रहा है. I don't think that's a good utilization of my time. I don't want to go there.
Hmm. Yeah, I understand all that you're saying. I agree with it also. And yet somewhere there's a, what can I say? There's a little bit of feeling of, then where is the respect for relationships? I mean, he does a hell of a lot for me, and I couldn't do this much for him because I didn't want to go.
Yeah,
So
so
that,
it's
like
like
I said,
I think
this
just
little,
this thing that how am I deciding respect, right? Just because the other is saying that if you're not doing this, you don't respect me. Is that
no, he's
true?
not saying it.
No,
He's
no,
not
I'm
saying
just
that.
saying,
It's my own head.
No, but I'm sure that there must be some feelings that are coming in him or some attitude change or, some
Yeah,
something. So
maybe.
obviously then he's saying, right? Like not in words, but his behavior, his attitude. So if somebody believes that just because if I am not allowed to do something because it means a little too much to me. It just decided that I don't respect them. So I think it's good that they think I don't respect them. Sri Sri, he has written several books. In one of the books, he had written about respect. And he said that because of this respect, this giving and taking respect, our lives are so muddled and so complicated. So the day you lose respect, when people say, "Oh, ye to bahut bekar hai, I don't respect him anymore," that is the day you actually get free. That now I can do anything I want. Just a different line of thought, but it's very freeing that nothing, no criteria, no things I have to stand by, just standing by my side, following my inner calls, and being sensitive to the things I like and don't like. Yes, Sham, please.
Yeah, Taru, a slight interjection. Yeah, Taru, maybe that he wants to say that day we are not lonely, we are alone. And maybe when we are alone, the expanse for our growth is much larger than we can comprehend. Maybe he's trying to touch upon that school
Yeah,
of thinking.
yeah, it very well could be. And yet this need of respect, कि मैं तो बहुत अच्छी हूँ, सबको लगना चाहिए मैं अच्छी हूँ, सबको हमें लगता है, we want that feeling, I am a good person, everybody should feel a good person, I am a good person, but what all I keep doing to uphold that image that gives me respect, that brings me love, I keep on crushing myself for those images that are giving me nothing really. And these things we keep postponing, and yet, in one of the circles, I don't know where, when somebody, I think Monica had shared this, that she had shared this example of Eileen. She works with Jackson Miller. She used to be her assistant, and she's a nun. And she once had shared the story that she was praying. She was meditating in a retreat, and there were 2, 3 ladies standing outside the hall and talking. And Eileen could not concentrate, could not focus. So she said, okay, most likely they'll be, done in 3, 4 minutes. Then I'll start. Let them just finish. But then a thought came to Eileen that I'm saying that they'll be done in 3, 4 minutes. Then I'll focus. Do I know whether I'll be alive after 3, 4 minutes? And then she said that kind of, shook her, and she again started focusing deeper and deeper, and soon she could not hear the people talking. So somehow when we take this life and this time for granted, we can't stop because we really truly don't know. By habit, we think that, the next breath is for granted, of course, and yet we don't know, we don't know, we don't know. So if I'm feeling something right now towards something, I must stand by it. I must not be afraid of hurting or rocking the boat. We keep, especially in relationships, we keep looking for a, unstable harmony kind. But let me not rock the boat, let me not rock the boat. But at times, and many a times, that rocking of the boat is very good because it helps the person gain bigger balance when the boat is being rocked. So we must rock the boats, I think, and try to, grow and help the other grow too. It's a favor rather than a punishment.
Well, you bet it's rocking today.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so good that it's rocking. It's better than a stable boat all the time. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Salakshmi. Yeah, Ritu, are you in the capacity to share? I know you're traveling.
Yeah, I can. So you mentioned that Sham mentioned that we should, like, if we look at ourselves from a distance, then probably we would appreciate ourselves more. So here I'm reminded of my mom. She's there with me now. So she always, when we grew up, I saw that she would never appreciate herself, thinking that I haven't done much in life. So I would, and my other siblings also would just be in awe that, oh God, she raised 4 kids and she raised them so well. I mean, I'm not appreciating myself, but somehow, I mean, that's what we thought, that, okay, she did a very good job. At currently, if somebody has to raise even one kid, they need a lot of help. But she did all by herself, and all the kids were very well educated. And so we would be always thinking that she's done so much, rather, and she would be thinking about herself that she hasn't done anything. And she would sometimes, blame herself, curse herself. So it's strange, I mean, how we look at things for others and how we look at things for our own self.
Hmm.
Same thing must be happening with us too, probably. Somebody
Yeah.
else looks at, and when we look at ourselves, it's different. But then, there must be some people, not in this circle, everybody in this circle is saying that they don't really like themselves. They don't love themselves. But I've seen few people who love themselves so much that they don't see anything else besides their own self. For them, everything has to be about them. Why is not all the family members concentrating on me? If I'm in the room, why are people standing up? I mean, things like these small little things.
Yeah.
So it's, everybody has a different personality and the
Yeah.
way they perceive themselves, and yeah.
They say there are two selves, right? The inner self, the true self, the divine self in me, which is wanting evolution, which is wanting growth, which is wanting love, which is love. And then there's the ego self, the false self. So this obsession that you talk about, and even Jagan was mentioning last time about how do we balance, how do we train, how do we control, those things are all about the ego self. The small self who also just wants to grasp and say, कि, मैं तो बहुत, था हूँ type. And yet the true self is what we are talking about, that, it's said that, we are divine beings here for an experience on earth. But when I say, which I say, especially, in Hinduism in India, there's this thing that the divine lives in me. And that's what I'm loving myself for. That's what I love about myself. Then it's very difficult to, I mean, it's not difficult because, of course, the ego can stand anywhere and claim dominance. And yet, if we are just honoring the divine in us and honoring our inner call and honoring our voices, I think it's different. And then it's hard to go where you are saying that we go. But what you are saying, that's not self-love. That is just, again, the ego self wanting, जो हम भगवान बन जाते हैं, and especially we want from the children to treat us like gods. Osho has spoken great lengths about that. So that's different. So, there is this booklet that I thought it would be nice to read something from there just to open our vision more about love. So, this is Preparing for Yoga Through Human Love, a compilation from the works of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. So, just talking about love, just trying to understand what love is, because it seems we don't really know. So if we could just, take read one of these, and if there's any reflections, we'll take a few. So if anybody is willing, they can just read this for us, the highlighted one.
I'll read it.
Yes, please.
The mother did not tell you that love is not an emotion, but that divine love is not an emotion. A very different thing to say. Human love is made up of emotion, passion, and desire, all of them vital movements, therefore bound to the disabilities of the human vital nature.
Yeah. So here, if somebody is not looking happy, I will say that, oh, I've heard them. If somebody is looking very happy with me, I'll say, oh, they love me. But what mother is saying is that's an emotion, and love is not an emotion. But we think it is, right? Our emotion, passion, desires, we believe, they are made of love and they take us towards that, and yet they don't. They are taking this one. Yeah, I'll read it. Without self-giving, there is no love. But self-giving is very rare in human love, which is full of selfishness and demands. Even if I look at self-love, there's so much selfishness and demands of me, even from myself, right? That's a good thing to think about, especially what Shyam was sharing, that how I'm so hard on myself. But even with others, like they say, true love is actually self-giving. The person I love belongs to me. This is a statement made by a sadhak, and mother says this is a very ugly love, quite egoistic. So now she's talking about what is true love. If anybody wants to read this 4 lines, otherwise I'll go.
In comparison, what what is true love? Love is self-giving without asking anything in return. To love is not to possess, but to give oneself. And what is the first gesture of love? To give oneself, to serve. What is its spontaneous, immediate, inevitable movement? To serve. To serve in a joyous, complete, total self-giving. True love is a self-forgetting.
Yeah, so you see how contradictory it is to what we were discussing, that how do we put balance? How do we know it's not becoming self-obsession? How do we know it's not getting on our head? So love cannot get on our head, but those vital emotions can, right? Because here it says love is self-giving without asking anything in return. It doesn't have conditions that, okay, at least do this for me. No. To love is not to possess, कि मैं कर लूं, मुझे मिल जाए, but to give oneself. How can I be there for you? And what is the first gesture of love? To give oneself, to serve. What is it? What is its spontaneous, immediate, inevitable movement? To serve in a joyous, complete, total self-giving. I love because I don't know any other way. I give because I don't know how not to give. Not because this is what I'll get, this is what I get. And true love is self-forgetting. It doesn't remember that I too need to get something. Love does not forgive. It understands and cures. Snehi had written that sentence that I would tell that child to forgive them. But forgive तो ये होता है मैं कोई और हूँ, तुम कोई और हो. Okay, you did a mistake. I'll forgive. And yet love does not forgive. It understands and it cures. Okay, so if anybody can read this human expression of love. Okay, I'll go ahead. So the question is that, Mother, what kind of love is that which says, if you love me, I shall love you? Mother answers that if you love me, I shall love you. That's exactly the way men speak. If you love me, I love you. If you don't love me, I don't love you. That this is just the most human expression of love, and it goes still farther. They apply it also to their relation with the divine. They say to the divine, if you do what I want, I shall say that you love me and I shall love you. But if you don't do what I want, then I won't think at all that you love me, and I certainly will not love you. That's how it is. That means that it becomes commercial. I tell you, so long as there is this calculation in the mind or the feelings and sensations, so long as there is some calculation more or less acknowledged, it is bargaining. It is not love. This trading nature, whenever that comes, no matter in any relationship, it's not love. So this is really, really, really beautiful. And Mother and even Jet Sunmala, I've heard talk about it in almost the same way. I mean, if we can know this, even if we don't touch it right now, I think it's a very good thing to know. So here Mother says that at first, one loves only when one is loved. Next, one loves spontaneously, but one wants to be loved in return. Right? First is somebody is loving me, so I love them. Second is that, okay, one is you are loving and somebody is loving you back. Then one loves even if one is not loved, but one still wants one love to be accepted. That okay, if you can't love me back, but at least accept me, accept that I love you. And the final is the one love purely and simply without any other need or joy than that of loving. That's what we were discussing, that I love because I don't know how not to love. Not because you're my child, not because you're my friend, not because you are Indian, not because I don't know we think the same, but because I love, because I am love. And I think that is the acceptance and love when we are, with some realized beings, either in a subtle or physically when we are with a master, a mystic, if we have ever had that grace to be with enlightened beings, that feeling of love is very, very, very prominent.
Ma'am, I know it's past 11, but if possible, can you repeat the first paragraph in that thing that Sulakshana ma'am read?
Yes. So I think this was what it was. So Jagan, if you want to read it for us again, you can go ahead.
The mother did not tell you that love is not an emotion, but that divine love is not an emotion. A very different thing to say. Human love is made up of emotion, passion, and desire, all of them vital movements, therefore bound to the disabilities of the human vital nature.
So I'll share this book on the Circle of Harmony if you want to go through it. So yeah.
Yes, ma'am. I was going to ask if you were able to share.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So do you have any comments or reflections on this paragraph? Anything you would want that stuck, I don't know, stuck you?
Uh, no, first time I could not follow it, but
Okay.
um, it's a different approach. I'll think about it and I'll ask.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So, we don't have all the answers, and yet we did touch some spaces that told us a little bit more about what standing by my side means. For me, I think again, this thing about not taking oneself, this body, this life for granted is a very big one because it doesn't take a second for it to end. And when it ends, like I said, I always think that God is standing and asking me, hey, did you live a good life? Was it fun? And I'm like, not really because that, because this, because this. And he'll be like, oh no, I wish you hadn't, and I wish you had lived. So I really wish that we all can live and not just exist or just be, those bags of social conditioning now that we can see a little bit more by grace. And so that is thing. And secondly, what we had discussed last time, about like say somebody standing with a child that I'm standing with you. You can, okay, you want to do this, do it. I'll stand by you. I support you. Try it, experiment with it, fail, it's okay. But do what you want to do. So standing by my side, like I would stand by the side of a child that yes, you too can live, you too can have fun, you're allowed, you're free. Life doesn't have to be this heavy, this hard, this complicated. And if it is, there's something that's wrong. I need to step back. I need to reflect. I need to let go of so many loads that I'm carrying. And if I don't stand by my side, then I would not live, I don't know, the life that I think I intend or I'm capable of living. Because if I just leave my own side, then I'm just led towards what the society, what commercialism, what it says. I'll just go astray. So I have to find my own center. That is a big thing, I think, and big realization that I have to stand by my own side. Yeah, any questions? Jagan, I think you had asked something at the end of the last session. I don't know if you still have that question about finding a balance or how to train to love yourself. There was something like that, right?
Yes, I actually did not communicate correctly last week. It was the question was more about how to channel the love to act in the right way at the right time, like my mother would channel. That was it. But I think you answered the question as well. Thank you.
Okay, not knowingly I've answered, so that's great. Yeah. Great. So I think we can then end now. Again, this is not for answers, this is more for questioning, for self-reflection, for trying to see things out of different windows so that we can expand more and I don't know, live more freely and with more spaces for movement, right? Not living very tightly with the do's and don'ts. Yeah. Okay, I think then we'll end the session here. So just taking a last minute to just, again, just, I don't know, thanking Grace for this opportunity to have this discussion. Praying to be able to see more, aspiring to love ourselves more, especially, the good, loving our true self, basically. And then praying to share the merit of, I don't know, this session or in general, praying for everybody's happiness and peace. May all beings be well and happy. I truly, truly, truly pray for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Taru. God
Thank you.
bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.